There we go. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Roseanne Hassett. I'm the Executive Director of TACDA, the American Civil Defense Association. Thank you for coming. It's nice to have everybody here tonight. We have a big group, so it's awesome to see you. Tonight, our topic is the 10 Principles of Survival, and it is presented by James C. Jones. And just a little introduction for James. James is a retired certified hazard control manager, emergency medical technician, and safety and security manager. He has spent over 40 years teaching survival skills and advocating for family preparedness. He founded Live Free USA in 1968, an organization dedicated to the support of preparedness and self-reliance through public education and group support. He has written articles for many national preparedness magazines and has authored 6 books from Skyhorse Publications. His latest book is titled Surviving the Coming War and is available on our website in our survival store, along with his other books. Before we begin, I am obligated to read our disclaimer. Nothing in this presentation should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The opinions of the viewers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of TACDA. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. So the format tonight is informal. You can ask questions on the fly if that's okay with James. Is that good, James? Okay. So if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll try to notice that. And then if you don't get your question answered, you can always wait till the end. We'll have 15 minutes at the end for questions. So our presentation will go for about 45 minutes. And I will turn the time over to James.
Okay, thank you, Roseanne. Appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity to meet all you folks and do our part of our mission in helping people prepare for emergencies. As you might have guessed, this is basically a human behavior and how we behave under high stress conditions class. It's very important. It's probably the most important thing you have is how you use your brain under high stress situations and understanding and controlling your own emotions. These 10 principles are derived from a couple of sources. There's a book called Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez, published in 2005. And then The 7 Habits of Effective People by Stephen Covey in 1989. He outlined different ways, things that you need to do to be a successful person. Those things apply to everyday survival. They also apply to everything else you do. Spoiler alert for you right now, these principles that we're going to go over and all the things about human behavior in general, they apply to every single thing you do. They don't only apply to disasters and emergencies, they apply to everyday life and everything you do, financially, family, socially, whatever you do. These same principles apply to being successful. They apply to wilderness survival. They apply to urban survival. They apply, and I'm going to do a class on urban survival later this year, because if you didn't pick up my Chicago accent, I was born and raised on the Chicago South Side. Okay, so I'm going to tell you some good stories. That this will be months from now, but anyhow, they apply to urban survival. They apply to disaster survival, and they definitely apply to conventional and nuclear war survival, as is in my book. So this applies to pretty much everything. This is kind of a Swiss, what you do in your mind is the Swiss Army knife of survival training, because it applies to everything. So I won't go over this, spend much time on this. Roseanne's already covered this pretty well. Emergency medical technician for about 30 years. That's why I wrote a first aid book as well, which is available from TACDA. I was a safety manager for a Fortune 200 corporation for over 40 years, actually. And we won many safety awards. And I had a hard childhood, and I came into this, basically, I think I had a survival pack since I was about 10. So, and then I've written a lot of articles for Live Free's newsletter. So if you happen to join Live Free USA, you get this newsletter every 2 months. Or if you join online, hey, you get it. You can download all the back issues. So, and as Roseanne mentioned, I'm the author of now six books, much to the amazement, I imagine, of my old English teachers. But yeah, so this is Live Free. We're a nonprofit educational organization I founded with some friends of mine, kids out of high school actually, back in the 60s, to promote and support individual preparedness and self-reliance and survival education. That's our mission. Every organization and every person should have a mission. If you don't do anything else tonight, I'll talk about it later. Sit down and write what your personal mission is. From Stephen Covey, I'll steal that. Begin with the end in mind and know what you want people to say at your funeral. So anyhow, point was that a lot of people spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find they put the ladder against the wrong wall. So that's survival and life in general are pretty much compatible operations. So Live Free in USA in general, is AmericanSurvivor.org is actually our website. Our mission is, as I mentioned, is already to advocate and help people become more self-reliant and prepared. Self-reliance is the foundation of a free society, hence the name Live and Free. It's like, life is not really worth living if you can't be free. So that's as political as we get philosophically. We're not really a political organization, but that's certainly an important part of it. Our motto is self-reliance, preparedness, and responsibility. And we really had to add that responsibility item because of all the bad publicity that survivalists get. The people that extremists that adopt the term survivalist, or sometimes the media tags it with it. It's basically self-reliance and survivalism is based on responsibility. So we're not doomsday survivalists. We don't have a political agenda. We are out to help people. So we needed more TACDA and Live Free and other organizations like us, and there aren't that many of us. But we're needed more now than we were back in the 60s. Back then, it was just the Cold War, nuclear war. Other than that, everything was fine. In fact, our latest issue, every year we come out with the threat matrix. And the threat matrix is all the different things that can combine to endanger your life and your freedom. And we have a whole matrix of those things, and it's much more dangerous now than it was in the 60s and the 80s, back when Live Free and TACDA were much better supported in those days. So, well, obviously, I was talking with Roseanne. We're looking for officers. We're looking for leaders. Some of us are getting older. Not me, but a lot of people are getting older anyhow. But anyhow, yeah, we need officers and leaders. We're not looking for just followers. And we're looking for sponsors and contributors, both TACDA and Live Free. And we actually had an American Survival Training Center in Wisconsin. A long time ago, we had to let it go for lack of support. So if any of you are millionaires out there and would like to help us out with that and get that going again, we'd love to hear from you. So thus endeth the commercial. This is basically the same thing Roseanne just gave you, because we don't know under what circumstances these lessons and these techniques are going to be used. So we always have a disclaimer. So what are we going to do tonight? My old public speaking teacher said, you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So that's what we're going to do. How people react under high stress situations. We're going to define acute and chronic disasters. First of all, I got to say, what is a disaster? Stages of adjustment, how we get from the first stage of adjustment to doing something to protect ourselves. And we'll talk about at-risk mental states, which I bring from my safety management perspective, but it's important because under hazardous conditions that we're facing today, you know how to control your mind and understand what's going on in your head. You can't control your mind, you can't control the situation. And then we'll get into the 10 principles that I mentioned. And we'll talk about mission-centered preparedness and a little bit about recommended books. So what is a disaster? Well, that first thing we have to define, because a lot of people have different ideas about what a disaster really is. And we define it as any threat that results in an immediate or eventual threat to your life, liberty, or property. Where did I get the life, liberty, and property from? Well, uh, that it defines a disaster. So there's a lot of things going on that they aren't tornadoes. They aren't things that you really, kind of things you think of as disaster, but they're slow burning things that are happening to you. And being an EMT and a medic, I use the terms acute and chronic. Acute disasters, things that happen real quickly, like tornadoes, floods. The pandemic kind of came in quickly, but became a chronic disaster. Wars, civil disorder, criminal assaults. These things are happening right now. They happen to you now. You have to react to them right now. Those are acute. And then there's chronic disasters, slow developing disasters. Actually, in my book, I argue that we've been at war for 20, 30 years. It's basically a chronic growing condition rather than something that we're going to, tomorrow we declared war on somebody or somebody declared war on us. That's not the way it works anymore. So it's a chronic, war is a chronic condition at this point that will just get worse and worse. So climate change is a chronic disaster, and I don't care about who caused it, okay? Economic decline. That's horrible. If you've been around as long as I have, the economy has declined a long way. Back, my parents bought a house for $6,000, and a family with one income could pay off their house in 10 to 20 years. Can they do it now? Shortages of life critical needs, and we're beginning to see those shortages develop, and we depend on China for half of them. Loss of life critical services. I work with the police department. I'm a volunteer in police service. I work with the fire department. I've worked with the Red Cross. All of those, their budgets are being cut. Volunteers, there's no volunteers anymore. All those services that we have become dependent on are starting to go away and collapse. And one little push, and a lot of them will be non-functional. Unemployment, ongoing, chronic disasters. So we talk, these principles apply to both classes, okay? So acute disasters are happening more frequently. We know it all the time. We see more disasters, fires. I just wrote an article for the newsletter about 3 weeks ago. It's going to be in the next issue on fires, on the dangers of fire. In fact, I called it the original weapon of mass destruction. Okay, fire. And darn, look what's happening in Los Angeles right now. Right? So people are going to see an article and say, well, they wrote that because of Los Angeles. No, we anticipated these kind of things. So some of these can happen, and some of them are going to happen to you. So everybody has to anticipate that a lot of this stuff is going to happen to you. In fact, in my book, I talk about how the things that happen to people in the Ukraine and are happening in Israel. Those things can happen to us in the next war because we're not immune to hypersonic missiles. We're not immune to drones and that kind of thing or cyber attacks that used to happen overseas when there was a war. They're going to happen here. So we can see that. Power outages already starting. I can guarantee you as things get worse, the power outages are going to be more frequent. Civil unrest, we went through a period of this. It's coming back. Crime, storms, epidemics. Already starting to see signs of another epidemic. Mathematically, by the way, you hear this, well, we just had an epidemic, so we won't have another one for a while. Their conditions have not changed one bit from when we had the first pandemic. So we could have the next epidemic or pandemic next week, next month, or next year. And I can guarantee you that foreign nations and the and terrorists took note of what that little, which is basically was a minor pandemic with COVID, if you can think of it as minor, but nevertheless it was comparatively. They're going to whip up some good stuff to use for the next one, and there's going to be 10 or 20 patient zeros. So we have to anticipate that. Anticipate, by the way, give away one of them. Anticipate is one of the first rules of survival. Chronic disasters are happening to you and your family all the time. You see it in your lowered standard of living, and you're worrying about crime in the streets, all the kind of things that you're dealing with. They're here now. Life as we know it. By the way, this program was put together like originally about 20 years ago. So you can see how all this stuff has just come to pass. Yeah, life as we know it is definitely not going to survive the 21st century. It's not surviving now. This is the big one right here. I see mostly older faces on the screen here. I don't know who else is out there, but anyhow, this is what it's all about. It's all about the children, the next generation. The next generation is either going to be the not so great generation or the greater generation, because that's the only way we're going to get out of the situations we're in. And it's up to us to try to train and motivate them. So here we get to the meat of the thing. How do we react to disasters? How do we react to danger? The first stage is always denial. It's natural. It's called the normalcy bias. In other words, we're biased to things being normal, or we resist things being not normal. So denial is the first thing that happens. We say, "Oh, this can't be happening. You got to be friggin' kidding me." You know, that's normal. That's normal. But you got to train yourself and use the 10 principles to get from that to from denial to action as fast as possible. And don't, with the everything will be okay. Only politicians tell us that, okay? They're the only ones that can tell us everything's okay. Okay. Everybody else, everything's not going to be okay. So let's face that and move on. So you smell smoke or whatever, and you say, "Oh, this can't be happening." Or you realize you're lost in the woods, or there's a big flash and you realize that it's probably a nuclear detonation in the next town. "Oh, this can't be happening." Okay, but it will be happening. So next thing at stage is deliberation. What can I do? What do I do? What do I do? Okay. You might also be a "who will help me" God. We have made people, train people to be "who will help me." That is our national psychology now, is "who will help me." This generation is "who will help me." My generation was "what do I do?" or "what can I do for others?" So what should I do? Well, you have to make a decision. It has to be based on what you know, what you can do, and what you have available. So we're basically talking about knowledge, ability, and material. So the more you can do up here, the more choices you have here. And once you make that decision, you get into action to avoid it. And sometimes you can avoid the problem. Sometimes, you could avoid having a house fire by going around your house and making sure there aren't any flammable materials anywhere around, and the wiring is good. The people in California might have done well to get clearing around their house and not have creosote bushes and things growing next to their house. Those kind of things. You can avoid it. You might be able to, but if you have to survive it, you have to have your long-term threats and have a plan in place. Now, how does the body react to stress? So we get a lot of this in EMT and paramedic training. Your blood chemistry is going to change. Your blood vessels are going to constrict. This is all good stuff for you. These are natural defenses. Pain relievers and stimulants are released. So you see people who get shot and don't stop. In fact, the distance for like shooting somebody, if they're coming at it with a knife, it's 20 feet. The 20 feet's a pretty good distance. Well, you don't have to shoot him. He wasn't that close to you. Yes, but he's not going to even notice that gunshot until he stabbed you. So pain relievers are released, and if they've got drugs, if somebody's on drugs, they're even more likely to go further and be more dangerous. But these are things that will happen to you too when you smell smoke. You hear the flash, you hear gunshots. It comes on the television, the air raid sirens go off, whatever that simulates you, or somebody gets cut and they're squirting blood all over the place. This is going to happen to you, and you may get tunnel vision, which means you only see that one area or that one person or that one danger coming at you. So, and we were trained in EMT classes and we'd have drills. And by the way, online personal training is important in a lot of these things. We were trained to look around and get the picture of the entire thing. In fact, when I would, and I was actually a trainer, when we'd certify people for EMT classes to be certified EMT, they'd come in the room and the first thing they had to say is scene safety, and they had to look in each direction. If they didn't, they flunked right there because they had to look around and see everything going on around them. So things that happen to you, non-vital functions will discontinue, including salivation. Your mouth gets dry. You've been there. Everybody's been scared once while mouth gets dry. You urinate and defecate. 25% or more, a little known and little talked about fact, 25 to 30% of all soldiers do both of those things when they're first in combat. Okay. It's just something you never even cover in the movies, but it's normal. It's what your body, how your body reacts. Okay. Um, if you expect this, at least you're ready for it. Okay. Mental disassociation. It looks like it's happening to somebody else. And heart rates and breathing rates increase. Time does not slow down. Now, I've been through some real scary situations, and when I think about them, I think about the car starting to spin, or the flames starting to come out of the windows, or whatever. But it's just that's a more intense memory. When I remember it, when I think it over, time is slow, but it isn't when you're going through it. Your memory goes blank. This is an important one that I want to spend a moment on, because when your memory goes, all the stuff you've learned, maybe if you read a book or two or three, or hopefully my books, you learned a lot of good stuff, right? But when what hits the circular, um, your mind goes blank. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. The first thing is you dive in and let the training take over. If you repeatedly go over books, if you repeatedly work through your scenarios, okay, like in your house, if there's a fire, you have a fire drill in your house. Everybody has to roll out of bed, crawl blindfolded to the door, and open the door and crawl out. If they do that in a drill, then when it happens, they'll do it. But if you don't and you just talk about it, they'll probably sit up, take a good breath of 350-degree air, and be dead. So everything you do, every kind of training that you can do hands-on, first aid, like actually doing CPR, actually doing stop the bleed, actually using your survival equipment, that kind of thing, actually getting out in the woods, doing your evacuation drill, all of those things will get you a lot further. You always hear it all the time. As an EMT, when I would walk in and there's somebody laying there, and my mind goes blank. But as soon as you jump in, you start doing what you did in the training. And also, be aware that extreme cold and extreme heat will degrade your brain function and make it necessary to be a little more careful, a little slower. Take your time, think it through. So here's a technique that you can use. How many people are aware of what they call combat breathing? Anybody want to hold up their hand? Or I see a couple of hands go up. Okay, this is something you should practice, okay? And I've been through many situations where I needed to do this, okay? I won't go over all the earthquakes and building fires, and don't hang around me. I cause disasters, right? No, I've just been around a lot, okay? Inhale slowly for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds slowly. Wait 4 seconds and then inhale again. And do this like in through the mouth, out through the nose. What this will do is it will slow down that adrenaline rush. It will open up so you won't have that tunnel vision. It will give you a minute to start. All that nice information will start to come back that you learned. It will start to come back to you, and you'll calm down a little bit, and then you'll be able to do the things you need to do. Just a quick minute about at-risk mental states. And this is something that comes from my personal experience with industrial safety, but it applies to any kind of, whether it's a fire or medical emergency or anything else. When lots of times when we're going through, we're going to go through another pandemic for sure. We're probably going to get a more intense and maybe a full-out war with China. It's coming sooner or later. We're going to see all kinds of internal civil disorders and kinds of things. these things are going to get us fatigued. They're going to get us fearful. They're going to get us angry and frustrated and distracted. Things personally happen to you, just your personal lives get you distracted and concerned. This will put you in an at-risk mental state. You need to recognize it and you need to manage it. This is, again, some of this things that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. We'll cover that. But these conditions will affect you. And I'll make a real good example of this. I had a truck driver that worked at my factory, and he was our best driver. He was the guy that spotted all the trailers into the various docks in the facility. And he very experienced, very good guy. And he backed into a tanker truck and bent the tank in almost a half. But fortunately, it was empty. It didn't leak. Got a notice from corporate. We want this guy disciplined and we want him retrained immediately. So I called up corporate and the safety manager in corporate, and I said, he's one of our best drivers. But that morning, he put his father in a nursing home. Some of you have been there, right? Or maybe your pet died. Well, any of those kind of things can affect and you're going to be in those conditions as things go on and these different threat matrices develop. Be aware that you will be in that at-risk mental state, and you're going to go out and get your gasoline poured in your generator. You're going to get your axe out, and you're going to be doing this going down the street, and maybe you're going to load up your firearm, whatever it is. So you've got to be extra, extra careful. Okay, so concluding, basically getting from denial to decision and as quickly as possible depends on anticipation and attitude. There is an I in survival. It's called I can, I will, I must, I am responsible. And basically, we are taking responsibility for not only our own safety, but like on the highway. I get on the highway, I'm not only responsible for my own safety, I am responsible for all the cars around me and their safety. Same thing in life, same thing in your community. If it's thinkable, it's survivable. We talk about anticipation coming up. Mental preparedness is the foundation of survival. If you're not mentally prepared, all that fancy gear, all those books you read, all that training is not going to help you survive. So your family and community and your nation really need you to survive because because you're here. You're the people. You're the ones that it's going to depend on. So 10 principles of survival. Here's a couple of our mantras. Most of you, I hope, are familiar with the principle of having survival kit in your pocket or everyday carry. We've actually got 3 levels of everyday carry. If you've been on our website, you're familiar with that. Carrying the things you need, having the things you need in your bedside drawer. So at 3 in the morning, when the air raid sirens go off, the smoke is coming through your house, the intruders in your house, whatever that is, you got what you need in your bedside drawer. If you're on the street and you know what happens, you got stuff in your pocket to survive for a while, to get home. So it's not what you know, it's what you do that counts. So are you mentally prepared and ready to expect these challenges and handle them? I think you will be. Okay, number 1. This is the actual 10 principles. Assume that it can happen and assume that it can happen to you. Because you're listening to this, I'm assuming, and it's dangerous to assume, I'm assuming you're already there. Constantly do a what if analysis. I talked about that earlier. What if, what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if I'm at work when it happens? What if I'm on the road when that happens? What if I'm home? What if my wife is at work when that happens? What if my kids are at school when that happens? All those what ifs. You got to sit down and go through all those what ifs. What if that road is closed? What if I can't get to my pack? Whatever. Do a what if analysis on the most likely problems that you're going to have and have a plan. What if this happens? I will do this. This is anticipation. And it applies not only to the big disasters like war and civil disorder and all that, but it can apply on a everyday momentary, like I'm driving down the Dan Ryan Expressway. What if that steel coil on that trailer in front of me comes loose? Ever been there? Okay. I'm walking down the street to work, and I said, I'm on the south side of Chicago. What if those three guys on the corner with hoodies start coming toward this across the street to my side of the street? What if that car coming up behind me, the window comes down and he starts shooting at me? I got to have what ifs. Okay, it's a lot more useful than playing Candy Crush on your cell phone while you're walking down the street. Right? And those who move quickly from denial to decision and action survive. And this from anticipating, when you anticipate, you're already halfway there. Okay. Analyze trends and signs, and you can watch television. You can, by the way, don't pay attention to these so-called influencers. These guys, they got their profit motive. They don't, they don't know. They're not. I don't see any PhDs. I don't see any college degrees. I don't see any great experiences. These guys, they got a big mouth and an internet connection. Okay. So, but there's plenty of good sources of information out there, and you can see these trends and developing problems and be realistic and face them and say, yeah, this is something I need to anticipate and prepare for. So consider having a mental alert stages. In other words, I'm sitting in my basement right now. I'm in condition white or blue, very relaxed. If I go out in the street, I might raise that readiness condition a little bit more. Things that are happening out there right now. I mean, we had 2 years ago when we had the civil disorder, we had them coming about a mile from here, right down the street. I love our police department. He just bought these huge concrete barriers and dumped them right in the middle of the street, blocked the expressway exits and everything. So, but anyhow, point was that we were, I was in condition orange, not red, but orange. And we actually have started this new thing. I don't know if TACDA is going to do this too. It's called CIRCON, basically survival condition. So that we're publicizing it every month. We change the survival condition depending on the situations, and we're survival condition 1 is the worst. So it's 5 is it's like DEFCON. So we're at survival condition 4 this month because of all the things connected with the election and that. But that's something you can do personally. Put yourself, say, I'm in survival condition 2 or survival condition 3 or condition blue, whatever. But anyhow, that's aware. Be aware and anticipate, and then be aware. Military calls this situation called situation awareness. Again, get rid of that. Put that cell phone in your pocket, and they'll be aware of what's going on around you at all times. They call UDA. They call it observe, orient, decide, and act. And this is basically, you're constantly doing this all the time under a survival situation. You act, and then what did the act cause? Well, then you changed it. And you're under combat. They teach this over and over again. And what's really scary, I guess I digress a little bit, is that China particularly, and we are deploying them too, lost lethal autonomous weapon systems. And lethal autonomous weapon systems are basically armed robots that make their own decisions. Okay. Well, what could possibly go wrong, right? But anyhow, point is they can do this thousands and thousands of times faster than a human being. So I don't want to say where that's going to go, but it doesn't sound good. But anyhow, this is what you need to do. Develop the habit of analyzing events around you, sort out the relevant and useful, accurate information. Does this affect me? Is it accurate? Can I trust this information? Will it affect me? Then that's what you need to be concerned about, not some conspiracy theory that happened 10 years ago or can't be certified or whatever you need. No, I don't care what's causing the climate to change. I just know it is. So I'm dealing with that. Okay. Accurate information used to improve your life, freedom, and security in future. This is what you really need to access. And then finally, the last thing, pay attention to your instincts. Listen to your instincts. We all have these instincts that have been bred over thousands and thousands of years that we don't really understand, but they're there. You've all been there. This just doesn't seem right. I'll use a Chicago term. It sounds hinky. You like hinky? I don't know. Tommy Lee Jones didn't like hinky in that movie. Listen to your instincts. It doesn't seem right. If the hairs on the back of your neck start to stand up, pay attention to those things. Stop. Think about what's going on. Take extra precautions. These instincts are usually right. Okay. The third one is be here now. And this was definitely one right from Lawrence Gonzalez's Deep Survival. And it's like, be in the moment, be where you're at. Don't be somewhere else. Don't let your mind wander. It sounds crazy, but you want to be here. Want to be where you're at, when you're at this time, at this place, now. A lot of times, a lot of accidents happen just because nobody was paying attention. And I saw accidents in the plant, same thing, not paying attention. And of course, now we have all these earbuds and we have all these other distractions that only make it more dangerous. So you must be mentally at the same place that you are physically. Okay. I don't want to get gross, but we EMTs, I wasn't there, fortunately. Kid get hit by a train, found his head with the earbuds still in him. So what does that tell you? Where we're going here. Down the street in Chicago, boy, if they see you coming down the street with your face glued to that cell phone or those earbuds in you are a crime victim, just trying to be a victim of criminals. So under high stress situations, people also tend to go into denial and start wishing and hoping and daydreaming rather than dealing with the disaster. And we have a lot of that going on. And politicians tend to encourage that kind of thing because they don't want, politicians never going to tell you that bad things are going to happen and he can't do anything about it. So they want to lull you into being, less than prepared. So anyhow, under high stress conditions, it's not time to daydream. It's time to focus on the problem. Next thing is stay calm. Now, if you did those first three things, you can do this, okay? If you have anticipated it and you're in the moment and you paid attention and you're aware, okay? Even though it hasn't happened yet, when it happens, you're going to be the one you're already in action. You're already got it together. So anticipation, planning, and training are the only ways to prevent panic. And if you can help with your neighbors, you can help with your community to prevent panic in the same manner. So your body's going to initiate that fight or flight, adrenaline dump, but you just learn how to manage it. You expect it. You know what it does. You know what parts of it you can use to your advantage, and you know what parts of it you are going to be to your disadvantage, like tunnel vision. If you get through the first minutes, you can gather your thoughts and follow the next 6 principles. Okay, so you evaluate your situation, defense versus offense. If you're attacked on the street, yeah, you could roll yourself into a ball and you could, or you can, and scream, which is a good one, by the way, sometimes. You can act crazy, or you can go on the offense. The one thing criminals don't expect you to do is go on the offense. If, you attack them, you start screaming and hollering and throwing things at them and hitting them and raising all kinds of, that is the last thing they expect. But if you anticipated it, you might be ready to do that. There's a lot of different conditions where if you want to go on the offense against evildoers, as Bush would have said, anyhow, go on the offense sometimes to take, or on the offense to just solve the survival problem before it happens. You can't panic at every sign of danger. Now, particularly nuclear warfare, and I know TACDA was founded during those times. We were founded during those times. We would have members who would gather up their family because maybe a preacher or somebody else, the influencers in those days were more personal. They were still influencers, would tell them that the end days were coming or whatever, and they would take off to the hills. And then they'd come back 2 months, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they'd quit their job. Their apartment was empty. Eventually, they lost their family. So they basically created the disaster themselves. So you can't overreact to what I call the panic of the month club. So you've got to use some judgment. I kept the job in Chicago for 40 years. But you can't wait too long to act either. So you've got to look and say, well, yeah, this looks like maybe and if you do your planning, you can do a lot of things ahead of time that won't interfere with your life and your recovery if it doesn't happen. But you can't wait too long to act either. So this is a judgment call. triage your risk. What the risk versus benefit analysis for everything you do in a survival situation. Prioritize. What am I going to do first, second, third? Put that in your plan. Put that in your mental plan. These guys cross the street. I'm going to cross to the other side of the street. Yeah, you don't use that macho thing. Well, I'm not going to be afraid. Yeah, you're going to be smart. Okay, you're going to look up against three guys who are probably armed. So what will I do if they come back to my side of the street and come toward me? Okay, my next action will be, and then my next action after that will be, consider risk versus consequences of each action. Should I open fire on these guys? There's a lot of risk there. Or should I run? What should I do? Nuclear war is coming, or you think it's coming. Well, the risk is I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get way out in the woods and I'm going to have these problems versus the consequences if I wait too long and I can't get away from the city. So all these things you have to make decisions, and your plans and your anticipation will help you get through these things. Evacuation versus shelter, the big one. Back in the nuclear war days, everything was about evacuation. Everything was about having your survival pack. But we may wind up in a conventional war, or it may be civil disorder, or maybe something else. And remember, your home is where all your stuff is, where all your survival stuff is. Out there is where the pandemic is. Out there is where the crazy guys running around with guns are going to be. Now, out there is all kinds of problems. So if you can stay home and shelter in place, have your plan to do that. But you also must have the pack and maybe the caches and maybe the place to go to be able to evacuate. So you need to have both, and you decide which one is the most important right now. But you need both of them. And like in the woods, travel versus wait for help. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now we'll talk about it. Don't let the situation overwhelm you. Do the next right thing. Okay. So what's the next right thing for every situation is a little different. If you're lost deep in the woods and in a blizzard and you have no equipment, okay, what are you going to do? Now that's an acute situation. Collapsing economy, climate shift, shortages, that's a chronic disaster. So you have to focus on taking the steps in the right direction that will put you closer to safety and not take you down a blind alley where you can't do further methods to survive. For example, for getting lost in the woods in a blizzard with no equipment, your first priority would not be to light a fire. Your first priority would be to find shelter. It wouldn't be to run around and try to run through the snow and the cold and exhaust and run out of your energy. That's a whole subject for outdoor survival that I do. But nevertheless, stay dry and find shelter would be your first priority. Okay? The first right thing to do. For the chronic collapse and things today, put away stuff you need, put away stuff you can trade. Prepare your own economic survival plan. That would be the kind of things you would do for a chronic disaster. Take control, probably the most important thing. If you don't happen to things are going to happen to you. And believe it, things are going to happen to you anyhow, but you need to happen to them. The whole point of survival training, the whole point of survival preparedness is to happen to disasters before the disaster happens to you. So you take control, own the situation. If you're lost in the woods, there's an old saying, survivalists are never lost. How can I be lost? I'm right here. I'm in charge. This is my place. Whether it's the woods or underneath the debris or whatever it is, I'm in charge. This is what I got. I'm in. This is me. Okay? Okay? So own the situation. This is the situation. I'm going to deal with it. This is what I know, and you can improve that greatly. This is what I can do, and you can improve that greatly. And that gives you something called choices, and choices is called freedom. They have what you need. Now, I'm not a gear kind of guy. I'm a skill kind of guy and a human behavioral kind of guy. Okay. But nevertheless, the more stuff you got, the better. Okay. Nothing wrong with having survival stuff. In fact, I wrote a book. I wrote the ultimate book of survival gear. Well, my publisher decided to call it the ultimate book, but it's a good book. Ultimate book of survival gear. We talk about all the different kinds of gear that you need to have. So it's not what you have, it's what you have with you. So if you got a great survival pack at home and you're out and something bad happens and you can't even get home and you don't have a knife in your pocket, you don't have one of those little compact survival blankets in your jacket pocket. Every jacket I have has a survival blanket in the pocket somewhere. Every everyone has a knife. I always carry another knife. I always carry. I live in Indiana. It's not even it's a conceal. It's a open carry state, open carry constitutional carry state. And I moved from Illinois. Boy, that was a great move. What's in your vehicle? You're gonna have your survival kit in your vehicle. What's in your bedside drawer? And we also have like 3 levels now. You can email me if you didn't get it or you don't get our newsletter. We now have 3 levels of everyday carry, and we're at right now. The way things are going, we're recommending everyday carry level 2, which is carries some more stuff than you would carry under normal survival conditions. So have what you need, and you pretty much can't have too much. I still, well, you can imagine after 40 years, I got a lot. That's why I wrote the book. I had 12 stoves. So I thought, I got 12 stoves. Maybe I could write a whole book on survival gear. So anyhow, point being, yeah, you want to have, and if you live in an apartment, I covered that in a couple of my books. You may have limited storage space. So we talk about making wise decisions of what you can have. I mean, not everybody has a house. Not everybody has unlimited space, but there's answers to that. Use what you have. Of course, we need to be able to improvise, being able to look around you and say, hey, I can use this for that, and I can use that for this. Nature provides all kinds of materials for our outdoor survivalists and our wilderness survivalists, all the different things that you can use in nature. We do edible plants. We do, building debris shelters, fire building, all that kind of stuff. There's lots of materials out there. And then there's society leaves all kinds of junk. We're a junk society. I know one time I had an old car up in Missouri and the exhaust system fell down. So my ex-wife, my wife that I had then, I got out of the car and I just started calmly walking down the road. And she's looking at me like, where are you going? There's no gas station within 200 miles of here. We're way back. And I said, don't worry. So I got about 30 feet and there's a piece of baling wire laying on the road. Because I'm in Missouri, farm country. Sure enough, there's a big piece of baling wire lying on the road. Went back, wired up the exhaust system, and kept going. Think about improvising. What's lay around you? What can be a weapon? Some of our survival groups make a game out of it. They put a whole bunch of junk into a cardboard carton. They give everybody a card, and it says there's newspaper in there, and there's coffee filters, and there's wire and coat hangers and string and all kinds of junk in there. Okay, and everybody has to decide to make something. You have to make a water filter. You have to make a respirator. You have to make a weapon. You have to make a signaling device. You have to make it from what's in the junk pile. So you be able to improvise and repair things. So another one is do what is necessary. Mentally program to deal with things that ordinarily make you sick or you hate to do. You might have to chop up your best furniture and put it in the fireplace to keep warm. You may have, if you fell in the cold water with, and you're out with 3 or 4 friends, and now you come out and you're soaking wet and it's 32 degrees out or 28 degrees out, you're going to have to get naked in front of everybody, okay? If there's somebody in your family that's squirting blood all over, you're going to have to put direct pressure on that and get blood all over you and your clothes and everything. You have to be able to deal with this. You have to be able to do what is necessary under survival conditions. You have to have that kind of courage. I had to put an animal to sleep a few months ago, and you know how hard that is, but it was the best thing for him. It's what I had to do. There's a lot of things that we have to do under survival conditions. Yes, you may have to kill animals. You may have to eat things that you wouldn't really want to eat. You may have to actually hurt or kill human beings, and you have to steel yourself to deal with those kind of situations. So that's the 10. Oh, wait a minute. There is an 11th rule. Without the will to survive, and the equipment, all the equipment and knowledge is worthless. So never give up. Like live free, never gave up. TACDA never gave up, even when nobody cared about what we were trying to teach them back in the 90s and the 2000s. Oh, it's, it's the wonderful world. And, we got treaties that we're not going to have any missiles anymore and everything's going to be peaceful. Live Free and TACDA particularly never gave up. We took a lot of hits. We lost a lot of members. We've struggled, but we never gave up because we knew our mission was important. And you should know that your mission is important. So you must have a personal mission. Where are you going? How are you going to know if you succeeded if you don't have a personal mission? So here's a couple of suggested missions, and I think I'll let you just read those. Give my voice a rest. So save your family, save your community, and save the future of our country. It's pretty much up to you because a lot of people aren't really doing what they should be doing. But we're not complacent. There's a lot of hope. I was talking with Roseanne, and we're getting more. We're starting to see a little more support and a little more interest in this. It's not like the old days when civil defense was very popular, and we actually had TACDA had big conventions in Las Vegas, and Live Free had 800 members right off the top, and we were on all the television stations in the country. Unfortunately, we don't get that kind of attention yet, but the times are hard, and hopefully we can turn things around. Finally, there's a real quick look at my books: Advanced Survival, Total Survival, 150 Survival Secrets, The Ultimate Book of Survival Gear, Prepper's First Aid Handbook, which is really selling well, where I combine both the military advanced survival procedures for when the ambulance is never coming. It's a very good book that everybody probably should have. Survive the Coming War. We talk about war zones, wartime, and combat zone survival, because it's not going to be just wartime. We're going to experience combat, war zone, and probably combat zone conditions for at least some part of the civilian population. So hopefully you're already supporting TACDA. Hopefully you'll also be supporting Live Free USA. Check out our site at americansurvivor.org. And it's time for questions. And I will stop sharing and take questions.
Thank you, James. That was a great presentation. Does anybody have any questions for James? We have a hand up. No, let's see. But I saw a hand.
Let me get this off the screen.
Feel free, if I don't see your hand, to just unmute yourself. Or you can also put a question in the chat.
Hello. I know this is a difficult one to come up with questions for, but
Okay, well, I have a question.
okay.
I was wondering about what you were saying about being prepared for any situation at any time, having what you need in your pocket to survive, what you need in your car, and in your bedside drawer. What would you suggest we have in our pocket, in our bedside drawer, and in our car?
Okay, those are two good questions. We have a number of illustrations of that in my books and also on our site. But on basically everyday survival or everyday carry, depending now, weapons are always depending on where you're at, where you're going, what you're doing. So definitely, if you live in an urban or suburban area and you can carry a firearm, it's pretty well recommended. If you really think about tasers and you think about pepper spray, you have to get real up close and personal. You have to get this thing prepared, and then you have to get up close and personal with a person who is probably a lot better at hand-to-hand combat and more ready to use violence against you than you are ready to use against them. So definitely, if you can, a weapon of your choice. The other thing is always carry a knife. It's just the mantra of survival preparedness. Always carry a knife of some kind. they make some really nice, I wish I had them out here right now. They make some really nice knives that are available at, I'm trying to think of the different survival companies that are out there, but they make some knives that also have a fire starter and a flashlight built into them. So it's kind of nice, but always carry a knife or two. Uh, um, you want to carry a whistle if you can to whistle for help. You remember in the Titanic, yelling for help really didn't do much good. The whistle will get attention. Okay. On the same note, fire will get a lot more attention than help. So if you ever get attacked, yell fire because people want to get to the fire. The fire might get to their house where help might get them involved in something dangerous. So you yell fire. Not only that, but then the guy that's attacking you thinks you're crazy, which is a good thing, which is a good thing for you. I could tell some stories, but it's easy for people to think I'm crazy. So anyhow, but anyhow, yeah. So we got let's see, we got a flashlight of some kind, and they make these great little LED flashlights now. Don't depend on just your cell phone. And yeah, you need to carry your cell phone. You should have. By the way, the other thing with cell phones, everyday carry two. Okay. Because what do they always take from you whenever they rob people on the street? What do they take when they take your car? What do they take when they come into the store and they rob everybody in the store? They take everybody's cell phone. Okay. Now, okay, you're standing on the street. There goes your car. They got your cell phone. You got out your second cell phone and you give your license plate number and you tell the police that they just took your car. The other thing to know is that second cell phone, even if it's not connected to a service, now maybe you give them the cell phone that's a dummy anyhow, but just in case you got them, they gave them the live one. If you dial 911 on it, it'll still work. Even though you don't use it anymore and it doesn't have a service. If the battery's in it and it's still live, it'll contact 911. So important to know. So two cell phones is really a big advantage over having one cell phone. Okay. Radio, not radios, but okay, you got, let's see. Oh, bandanas is another thing that's a good thing to carry because you can improvise a tourniquet from a bandana. You can use it as an improvised face cover to prevent you from breathing in dust and harmful particles. I usually carry an N95, folding N95 in most of my jackets because then if I'm, let's say you saw 9/11, you saw some people coming out that were wearing N95s that were coming out of those buildings and running because they had been through the previous bombing of the World Trade Center. And they knew that they didn't want to breathe all these harmful dusts and stuff. Of course, they had no idea how much was going to be there. But if you can carry an N95, that's another everyday carry thing. So a weapon of some kind, a knife, a flashlight, a whistle, a bandana, those are things that you want to have and two cell phones if you can have it, because that will give you a clear advantage in a situation. Now, when we get to the higher levels of everyday carry, we start talking about having extra magazines for the pistol. We talk about having a full-size tourniquet device, little first aid equipment. If you're over 50, carry aspirin with you at all times. And we keep this also in your bedside table, because if you take aspirin, it's a blood thinner. And if you wake up in the middle of the night or you're out on the street and you that chest pain and you feel you're going to have a heart attack, take those aspirins or just take them in your mouth. You don't even need water. Just get them and dissolve them in your mouth. It will give you a much better chance of surviving the heart attack because most heart attacks are caused by blood clots, and it will help break up the blood clot and get the blood path. So, you wake up in the middle of the night, in your bedside drawer, you want to have some aspirin, among other things. Now we'll go to the bedside drawer. You want to have a tool in there, and they make some special, like little hatchets, little axes. They make some special tools that you can break out that window. You can pry open that door. You can use it as a weapon too, of course, but you want to have something substantial because you may have to go through the drywall. You may be buried in, depending if you're in California. By the way, I went to California twice and I managed to catch a big earthquake. But so yeah, I know what that's like. But yeah, you may have to go through the drywall. You may have to pry open the door, pry open the window, self-rescue. You can't break that glass. You don't want to get cut. So you got this tool And some of them come with a wrench where you can turn off your gas when you get out, because another thing, once you get out of your house under a disaster situation, you want to be able to turn off the gas or leave a wrench by your gas meter.
Yeah, we
Uh,
have some of those. We carry those on our website. Those are good
mhm.
tools, the
Oh,
shut-off
good,
tools,
good, good, good.
multi-use.
But yeah, that's important. That
Yeah,
was
that's
a
a good
good
idea.
question. Yeah, and
Mhm.
so yeah, and of course a big flashlight. If you live in a house where you got relatives coming in and out or kids, you may want to, instead of a weapon, or if you want to have a gun, you want to have a lock on it, but then you can have an industrial strength, pepper spray or something like that. But just recently, somebody shot their sister-in-law to death because the guy woke up, forgot that they had company, and got up and shot the sister-in-law and killed her. So you got to consider risk versus benefit analysis when you decide what kind of weapon to have in that bedside drawer. And if you
Yeah.
got children, you may want to be
Yeah,
better on this.
especially if you have children.
But
Yeah.
a big flashlight,
Mhm.
whistle, uh, and put the stuff on your bedside drawer. Put the cell phone on your bedside table at night. If you got a regular phone, have that there. Have your car keys, have your wallet, have that all next to you when you go to bed. Because if that intruder's in the house, or there's smoke, or the sirens are going off, or whatever it is, you don't want to be rummaging around trying. Where did I put my wallet? Oh, I ran out of the house, but my car keys are still in the house somewhere. You don't you don't want that situation. You can grab all that stuff and head out in your jammies if you have to. But at least you'll have the stuff. You'll be able to start your car. You'll be able to call for help. You'll be able to use your cell phone and all that kind of things that you need to do. So those are things that give you, anticipating, that give you a
Mhm.
step up on the average person. There's an old
Yeah.
joke about how you can tell a survivalist from a regular person by looking in their closet. Anybody know what that is? All the hooks are going inward so they can grab all the clothes.
That's
Yeah, that's
great.
an old kind of an old joke, but it's kind of true. You want to be ready to just do what you need to do. Yeah, but yeah, those buildings that collapsed in Florida, again, anything can happen. Okay,
Yeah.
and those people, all they had their cell phones. Most of them at least had their cell phones for a flashlight, but they had no flashlights. They didn't have their car keys. They didn't have the other things that they could get because most of it went down with the rubble. But yeah, you want to have those things in your bedside drawer. And when you're on the street, you want to have things in your coat pocket, in your pants pocket. I love these. Nowadays, we have these cargo pants. Okay. Yeah. Well, use the pockets.
Yeah.
Have the stuff in there that you need.
Yeah,
Uh, you
sure.
know,
All right. Well, we're out of time for our presentation, but we have a few more questions in the chat. So um, I'm going to end the recording. And then if anybody wants to hang out and listen to a few more questions, you're welcome to. Would that be okay, James, if we kept you
yeah,
for
that's okay.
10, 10 minutes or so and
Okay.
answer more questions?
Sure.
Okay. Well,
Sure.
I'm gonna end the recording right now. So thank you,
If you
everybody
got
who
any
joined.
questions, you can also email me at survivorjj@aol.com.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad you included that. And your website, one more time, is your Live Free website. James, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
What was your website again?
Americansurvivor.org.
Okay,
And my personal email is survivorjj@aol.com. So I always
great,
welcome questions.
great. All right. Well, thank you. And if you have any questions for TACTA, you can also email us at info@tacta.org. And we'll leave it there and we'll see you next time.